Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.2.2, in which I am attempting to make Kerbals a multiplanetary species. And with that, 3, 2, 1, launch. And clamps are away. Here we go. So, it's been a little while. Hello again, everybody. I've been out of town and busy for the last couple of weeks, but I am back and looking forward to getting a chance to play again. What we are launching right now is one of the more Kerbal contraptions that I have made on this series, but we have two ridiculous 5-meter multi-ratite booster clusters, and then some outrigger mainsails to finish off getting this thing into orbit. And this is the colony box that we are going to be using for our new base. We are finally going to be building the Minmus Shipyards. Alright, so we are getting toasty as we approach first stage separation on the Minmus Shipyard colony box. 3, 2, 1. Burn out. Kick them off. There they go. And let's fire up the boosters. Hopefully I fixed the issue where the, I feel like the wheels were occluding this a little bit before, but I don't think I hope that's not happening anymore. But yeah, those will just barely get this thing up into orbit. I think I'm just going to put it so that we are just about in orbit, and then I will kick these outriggers off. Alright, just about to finish this up. I don't think I could have asked for any better on that, those orbital parameters, 125 kilometers by 11 kilometers, so these will burn up in the atmosphere. So let's go ahead and kick those off. Not so much kick as so gently release. That's fine. And we are... Ooh, hold on. Push with the RCS. Get out of there before anything untoward happens with that. Alright, so with that we are just going to follow this trajectory up a little bit further. Alright, now we are just about out of the atmosphere. And there we go. So now I can kick this off, which has a probe core and some other electronics hidden inside there, but the colony box is all we actually care about. So let's go ahead and control from there. And where is my antenna? There we go. Extend antenna. Cool. And flip around towards prograde. And turn on our engines and get clear of all this debris that we are leaving to burn up in Kerbin's atmosphere. Though we can still see the big heavy boosters heading off that way. Those should be recovering here shortly. They have parachutes attached. Alright, we have our trajectory set. We are on the maneuver node. 3, 2, 1, burn! Alright, so this colony box is absolutely ridiculous, and we are circularizing and also getting into our trajectory that will take us out to Minmus in the same burn, which is nice and efficient. So this is two things at the same time. This is the KIS container that is absolutely full of all the extra bits that we will need to assemble our base, the Minmus Shipyard, which, as you may recall, I have intended to finish up the construction of all of the resource chains on Minmus. I want to do this to test, to make sure I can see how that sort of thing works when I'm building out on Duna, because this is kind of the last stage before we actually start constructing our Duna expeditions. We do have one Flags and Footprints mission that is headed out that way right now. However, we're going to want to start planning to send up the infrastructure and everything else that we're going to need, living space, habitation, ascent vehicles, descent vehicles, all those things we are going to need very, very soon, at least in the next conjunction between Kerbal and Duna. So we're going to want to have all this stuff tested and planned out for how we're going to be using it on Duna way ahead of time. So this is the last thing that we need to construct, is this what I'm calling the Minmus Shipyards. So instead of sending this in 2 or 3 pieces, I'm sending this as one absolutely monstrous 200-ton lander / rover. You'll see it has the KSP container. It has a big box of 9,000 machinery, which is ridiculously heavy. 21,000 material kits, which is also really rather heavy. I don't think I have any specialized parts on here, which is unfortunate now that I think about it. But I built this a long time ago, so I guess we'll just see how things go. We may or may not need specialized parts, since that is mostly used to switch the specialization of a given module from one thing to another. Like if you wanted to change a drill from gypsum to hydrates, for example, that is how you would do that, is you would spend a little bit of material kits, a little bit of specialized parts. Although I have heard that the recipes in OSE Workshop, the in situ item crafting mod, is going to start using specialized parts as well. So we may need that sooner rather than later, but we'll see how that goes. Alright, so we just have 5 seconds left till we finish up this burn. And slowly wrap that up. Very nice. Alright, so this thing is pretty dang heavy. The intention of this is, like I said, I'm combining the 2 colony box bits, like the KSP container, the material kits container, the machinery container, all that stuff in one. And knowing that it's going to be ridiculously heavy and I'm not going to want to try to figure out a way to pick it up and carry it around, I've attached giant wheels to it so we can just drive to wherever we need it. Because we're going to have to drive a couple things up to the intended site. Alright, just another moment until we get to our correction burn between us and Minmus. So after I finish up with this one, I actually have 3 other launches that I'm going to cover, probably like fast forwarding and just very briefly show you some highlights of those 3 launches, because they were basically done with the exact same booster, so it's not incredibly interesting, but I'm sending out 3 different sets of the modules, and that will be happening in just a moment. Point this thing towards the sun. Very nice. Excellent. So let's... Ooh, it's going to be there in 9 days. That's interesting. Am I coming around the top? Ah, yes. Okay, yeah, we're actually hitting it as we are just beginning to fall back down from our apoapsis. But that's fine. I'm not too worried about the discrepancy in the time on this one. Alright, so here is the first of the 3 Minmus Shipyard ships that is being launched, and they all have a pretty common booster. 3.75 meter stack with 2 big SRBs on the side. So we will watch all of these at very high speed, and that will be just fine. So this one in particular is the assembly plant and 2 industrial refineries, or, you know, vice versa. 2 industrial refiners and an assembly plant. Either way, it is headed out there first. So the way that each one of these is kind of set up is they have that common booster, and they also have a common landing apparatus, basically, where they have, and it's a pretty similar thing that you guys have seen a couple different times, where I have the Honey Badger modules on either side that are the big VTOLs, the control modules, tanks for RCS, that whole thing. So pretty common set of equipment. Each one is set up on the landing leg cradles. So that should allow for some variability in the way that these things are set up. And now I'm just kind of spazzing my way through the actual getting the trajectory quite right, getting myself in a proper place, the maneuver setup so that we can get in orbit around Minmus and we head off. This one in particular was no problem at all as far as the amount of fuel that I had left, and I kind of took a look at some of the recovery contracts that I had there. But yeah, this one was no trouble at all. Alright, so let's take a look at what we actually have built right now. I wanted to kind of go through and just look, just for my own benefit, to see what I have going on. Make sure everything is toggled and activated. Everybody's got their experience recorded. This is the Moon cache base, which I built to basically just get some money. Oh, looks like we actually got a level up out of that, so that was good. Looks like last time I played, I actually checked all the funds and the colony rewards that you get, so that was not a very high value. But there's going to be a little bit of time in between my missions here where I'm sending things off, so I think that we'll see some good stuff out of that. Alright, so this is Minty Station, as you may recall, and I'm just kind of doing a double check on the supplies and so forth. You'll notice that it only says I have 4 hours of supplies, so I have to do some checking every so often to make sure that the numbers are actually going up, because on paper they definitely should be, but it still spooks me because it says that they're starving, but they're really not because of the way the catch-up mechanics works. So Minty Station, if you are new to the series, this is kind of my big undertaking here. This is where I have the majority of my manufacturing, the majority of my agriculture is happening here. This is going to be kind of 1/2 of the total colonized picture of Minmus when I am all finished. Right now I have fuel refinery, I have agriculture happening here, and a lot of resource gathering is being done out of Minty Station. I also have upwards of 10 Kerbals here. Some of a whole bunch of different specializations are hanging out and contributing science. They have pretty good habitation time, which is nice, and looks like the numbers are kind of funky for my Moon cache base as well as for this one. So that is what it is. I just have to know that things are actually pretty okay. Alright, so one more quick run by the Moon cache base just to check and make sure, because I noticed they had less than an hour of supplies left, and like I said, that's a little spooky, so just wanted to check really quick to make sure that the numbers are going up, and we look good. Alright, so that's kind of where we are infrastructure-wise. Let's get moving right along to the next launch. Alright, so launch number 2, or I guess technically launch number 3, is another industrial refinery, an agriculture module, and a big old Kerbitat. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to lay all these things out on the ground. I know I want to kind of pull these apart. I don't want these big, sausages with legs standing around as my base, but yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of figure something out, I guess. I don't actually have a clear plan and vision, which is not great. The Moon cache base was built with kind of a vision ahead of time of what I wanted it to look like, and I don't really have one for this. I just want the pieces to kind of fit together, but we'll figure something out. I'm not too worried about it. But this one was if I'm remembering properly, this one actually gave me some trouble. I think this might have been heavier than I anticipated because, as you see, I just separated the main booster, and we are still pretty deep in the atmosphere and pretty deep in the gravity well. So I'm burning and getting up to orbital velocity and circularizing and so forth, but I end up having a lot less delta V on this one than I should. So we're just making our maneuver, tighten that up, and there you have that. No, now there you have that. Nope, more fiddling. Fiddle, fiddle, fiddle. Okay, so now we have about a 1 kilometer per second burn to get into this orbit, and that's only going to leave me like 400 or 500 meters per second of delta V to actually land this thing. So I'm not 100% sure that when this gets into orbit, we're going to be able to land this safely. If I remember, Minmus is ridiculously easy to land on, so that is the only hope that I have for this particular craft. Otherwise, I may end up having to refuel it in orbit, which is not that big of a deal, but it is a risk. Alright, so just whip around, get to... Ooh, look at that. Whip around, get to the maneuver node, and... correction. There we go. Looking good. Alright, so rolling straight on to our third and final of the module pieces. This one is actually pretty different. I tried to shave some weight off by using 2.5 meter parts as opposed... Oh geez, I just realized I was not controlling from the right spot. Ooh. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is a 2.5 meter stack as opposed to 3.75 all the way up. It's using the Caribou VTOLs as opposed to the Honey Badger. And that did help me save a lot of mass on this particular launch, but I found that it's a little weird. It flies a little strangely, but I guess we'll see how this one goes. My flight trajectory was a little bit off, my ascent was a little bit off, everything was a little bit strange with this one. But anyways, this one has the last couple of pieces, which include the Kerbal Academy there in the middle, which I'm going to use to be able to level up Kerbals in situ and train them, actually. Like, use other higher level Kerbals to train lower level Kerbals, which I'm super excited to be able to do. It also is going to have the PDU and the logistics slash Pioneer module. Alright, so kick off all those little bits and get this thing rotated around. Pretty familiar thing. Oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, this is wildly unbalanced. Oh, what have I done? Okay, so this is going to be... So here's the question. Is this going to be dicier or less dicey than my perfectly solid module set that actually is balanced? So this is going to be, this has fuel, but it's going to be a little tight, I think. This is going to be a little strange. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about landing this, but I think we should be okay. I'm gonna continue. I'm not gonna revert this one and try to launch it again. I think that we'll be able to recover this, but knowing that it is very unbalanced, even though the Caribou VTOLs have a tremendous amount of gimbal, that's definitely something that we need to watch out for, because that could definitely be a huge problem when we are trying to land. What I wound up having to do is, actually, I have like the maneuver node, target maneuver node, but I had to flip on the RCS and use the tremendous gimbal on these VTOL rockets to manually hold my maneuver prograde, which is not ideal. So this might, I'm just going to have to take extra care when I'm bringing this one down for landing. But there we have it. That is all three of these just about in orbit and on their way out to Minmus. Alright, so taking a very brief break from our Minmus Shipyard, we are launching what I am calling the Sunseeker. 3, 2, 1, launch. Alright, this is a fairly standard first stage. It's using just a couple little SpaceY pencil SRBs to get this big Mars cryogenic rocket engine up and off the ground. I love these. These use liquid hydrogen and oxidizer, and they have amazingly good thrust and specific impulse. 379 down here on close to sea level. So it's just a fantastic rocket. It uses liquid hydrogen, which means that your tankage is going to be a little bit bigger. You're going to be spending a little bit more on that dry mass, but I am not super duper worried about that, I don't think. With all the efficiency that you get out of it and all the thrust, I find that it's totally worth using. And it has, just like everything else that I pretty much use, it has parachutes stapled to the side, which it's not terribly realistic, I don't think. I feel like there's a lot of good research as to why the space companies don't use parachutes to recover their boosters. I think it largely has to deal with being able to precisely target where their stuff is going to land, which propulsive is pretty much the only way to get that level of precision. It allows you to actually control what you're doing. But parachutes, you're kind of at the whim of the atmosphere. So it's not incredibly realistic. Ooh, things are smashing down there. But it does allow me, here in Kerbal Space Program, for full recoverability of most of my stuff. As you can see, look at this. I lost a couple things, 20,000 funds, 6,000 funds, 20,000 funds. But this is, oops, where'd you go? This is from the Minmus colony box, which I launched just previously, and I got 185,000 funds back out of 243, and did that twice. So that's real hard to argue with. It's good value. All right, so we're getting a little toasty as we accelerate here to orbital speeds. But yeah, recoverability is kind of an interesting topic. SpaceX just very recently managed to land their first reflown booster. So this is the first booster that they had successfully landed. Whoa. Kick off that stage. Turn on the skipper. There we go. Okay. We're under control. Everything's fine. So it's the first booster that they successfully landed. They have refurbished it and are now, they flew it again and then they landed it again. It's wonderful. And this is the first time anybody's done anything like that. So it just goes to show how incredibly difficult reusability actually is. Okay, now that we have finished up the circularization of the Sun Seeker, let's go ahead and take a look at it. And to do that, we're going to want to kick off these fairings. Kaboom! I wish I'd remembered to put clamshell on, but that's fine. So this is something that is going to be pretty experimental. I'm not actually sure what the result of this is going to be, but let's extend all the antenna. This thing is designed to go find carborundum particles in the orbit, the close orbit of the Sun. So I've done a little bit of research and I found that carborundum, which is a very rare resource that is involved with the Carbonite Plus mod, or what used to be the Carbonite Plus mod and is now just rolled straight into Carbonite, I think. It is used to power some very amazing technology, such as this carborundum fusion drive, which would be an amazing, unbelievable, futuristic thruster that I just can't actually use because it just, you need carborundum. It's incredibly expensive you can buy it in the vehicle assembly building, which I don't love that you can do that, but it costs about 1 million funds for just 250 units, so one little tick on this tank cost me about 1 million credits, so we're not doing that. However, I think that this ship should, and I have no idea what pieces I actually need to do the finding, but this should help me to find carborundum. So we have survey scanners, we have narrowband scanners, we have carbonite detection arrays, which doesn't look like it has anything useful here. It has the carborundum scanner, which I'm not sure. Oh, that's a literal probe. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, looks like this one might be the only one that actually helps in any way. So let's go ahead and deactivate. And that's fine. We'll just deploy these because it looks kind of cool. So anyways, when I find carborundum in the orbit of the Sun, which I've heard that there's like a band around the Sun that you can find carborundum in, I can scoop it with this particle collector. I don't know if I can actually retract it once I've deployed it, but let's see if we can't take a look at this thing. It's kind of ridiculous. Deploy collector. Shoom. Yeah. So we'll be using that to scoop particles of carborundum and funnel it into these tanks down here. And the idea that I had is I'm going to send this to the correct area. Open carbon. Oh, carbonite or carborundum. That's interesting. Retract. Cool. My idea is that I'm going to fill this thing absolutely up with carborundum, if possible. I don't know how much I'm gonna be getting. If this might be something that doesn't even get me any carborundum until the game is long over. But the idea is we're gonna fill this up with carborundum and send it home using the fusion drive, and then I'll be able to kick off these big ancient Nervas and use my shiny new carborundum fusion drive instead. And then once I actually have some carborundum in orbit around Kerbin, then we'll be able to do some cool stuff. Alright, so to get down to the place where I have heard that there might be carborundum, I have a 6 kilometer per second burn to make, which is only going to take me about 30 minutes with this, with my nuclear engines. So yeah, that's going to have to get split up over a couple of periapsis kicks, I think. So probably, I don't know, 2 minutes on a side. Each pass probably is safe. I don't actually do this that often, so I guess we'll see. Alright, burn the first completed. We have increased our periapsis. And at this point, I think I'm just going to kill this maneuver, and we'll do the rest of this. Well, it's probably fine to leave this, just to kind of track a little bit. Okay. It no longer... The maneuver system no longer has any idea what's happening since I've spent an hour going around that burn. So I guess manual it is. We approach our 80 kilometer periapsis and sail past it. Probably get one more of these kicks in before I make the determination to just go for it at this point. Oops. Looks like I went too much. Alright, guess we're doing this. Right, so the only thing that we're actually looking for here is a lowered periapsis over the sun, because what I've heard is that there's a band somewhere very close. So I'm going to try getting down to about 5 million kilometers or 5 million meters above the sun, and we're going to see if that blows the ship up. I mean, I have some radiators. I could probably use more radiators because we're going to be so close to the sun, but this is actually not... I'm moving so quickly that I don't think this is going to take all that long. I think this is going to be 60 days is what my maneuver node showed the final approach or my periapsis around the sun to be, because we are just changing our velocity by such a huge magnitude that we should see this kind of whip by pretty dang quick. So this is actually an interesting way to think about things where there's that, you know, that idiom, that phrase, throw it into the sun, put it on a rocket and send it into the sun. That's actually really incredibly difficult to do because of the way orbital mechanics works. I think even if we were to try to push our orbit radially in one direction or the other, I do not think that it would make this any easier to try to actually collide with or get close to the sun. Let me just see, just for my own, to make sure I'm not completely out of control here with what I'm saying. Ooh, push. Yeah, it's no easier. There's no easy way to get close to the sun, is the takeaway from that. Alright, so we are finally getting our solar periapsis down. 70 million meters, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 4. Sure. I think I was looking for 5-ish? 5.4 or something like that? Here, let's make sure I get down below it so I can actually look and find... There. We'll do that. And that leaves us with 617 meters per second left in the tank, but we are hurtling out of this, out of the Kerbal system at 8 kilometers per second. So we're hustling. We're hustling just a tiny bit. How long until we actually leave? In the time it took me to actually make this burn, we almost got to the moon. So that should tell you everything you need to know about that. So this thing has all of the different detectors. It has a 1.25 meter nuclear reactor. It has the big particle collector and the biggest communitrons that I can muster. I'm sincerely hopeful that this actually works and finds some carborundum, but if it doesn't, it's not too big of a loss. This was not a hugely expensive craft, but we will certainly learn a lot with this journey one way or the other. Now, unfortunately, since I missed that second periapsis kick and any, subsequent ones, my trajectory wound up being pretty inefficient because I kind of lost the thread and I was just pointing prograde and burning as hard as I could to get out of Kerbin's sphere of influence. But so we're going to go up a little bit, and that's going to make the journey take a little bit longer, but we're going to get there. So in about 100 days, we will see. And that's about all the time I'm going to have for this episode. Next time, we're going to be working on building the Minmus Shipyards. Until then, I will see you next time.